2015 has been a year of unprecedented visibility in the transgender community. We've had more media, we've had more legislation introduced, we've had more Google searches this year than any year before. Celebrities like Laverne Cox and Caitlyn Jenner and Jazz Jennings have started a conversation and have helped grow awareness, more so than ever before. This type of representation is a powerful step for the transgender community. I am a transgender man, and that means I was born and raised as a girl. When I was little, I didn't understand what gender roles were. I just knew that my brother could wear slacks to school and I had to wear a dress. And that I didn't want to play with dolls, and I wanted to play with G.I. Joes and Legos with the guys. So our culture is pretty forgiving of tomboys, so it wasn't a real problem when my favorite clothes were my older brother's hand-me-downs, and it was mostly a cute anecdote that I kept asking to be called little boys' names like Tommy and Mike. And when I was 6, just in exasperation, I declared, just call me dude, just anything. I was, my childhood identity was not problematic. And that all changed when I entered middle school. Puberty is tough for any teenager, and that's undeniable. But for me, it was the beginning of feeling like I was a hostage in my own body. And so I, wore baggy t-shirts and baggy jeans to kind of hide the betrayal that was going on in my body. I was an outspoken, precocious kid, and that all changed. I kind of turned inward and fell into a deep and sustained depression that took a long time to get out of. I was an honor student, and my grades started to fail when it was too difficult to get from one class to another because I was being spit on in the halls or having a trash can thrown at me. And so ultimately it became, just cut class, just drop out of school. So I didn't have the language then to explain what was wrong, but I did know that I couldn't live like that. And so the pain became so intense that I tried to kill myself. It wasn't until a year later that when a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, I'm transgender, I'm going to be transitioning, and explained what that was, that I saw the first glimmer of hope, that I could see a path ahead for the first time, and that life might be worth living. And that's the power of visibility. When I told my parents that I was transgender, they obviously needed a minute to understand that their little girl was actually their second son. And I am so blessed that it took them weeks and months rather than years and decades to come around and become an amazing support group, and that extends to my entire family. So I was extremely fortunate for that, but so we went into research mode, and the internet was just in its infancy, thank goodness. So we learned a lot, but the thing that I think helped my parents feel the most at ease was meeting adult trans men that were well-adjusted and were happy and had kids and had careers and had their lives together. And I think that they could finally see that this wasn't the end of anything, it was the beginning of something. And that's the power of visibility. So, as a teenager, I began my transition, and after that I started working in a different city, surrounded myself with friends that didn't know my past, because I wanted to be seen and met as the man that I knew I was without all of the baggage of the word transgender. So that was kind of the beginning of the second stage of my life, and it exceeded my wildest expectations. I bought a house, I bought a car, I got married, I traveled internationally, I became the manager of multiple multi-million-dollar companies. I was succeeding at a level that I never thought was possible. But there was a cost. So by not sharing that piece of me with the people that I was meeting, that's in the transgender community called living stealth. By not doing that, I was forcing myself to omit and edit my own story. And I was like a really interesting character with a cool backstory, and like nobody got to know about it. So what that did was it turned me into a two-dimensional, boring person because I couldn't share stories and I couldn't connect with people. I became an excellent listener, mind you. But I was constantly aware of how I was being perceived, and I made a conscious effort to avoid being conspicuous. And so I could feel myself contract, become a smaller presence. And it was just incredibly isolating. So, you know, people find out like people do. So I did have a core of family and friends that knew. But, you know, every young couple that just got married, you know, knows that painful question of, you know, when are the kids coming? And that is incredibly tough to stomach when you can't have kids and you can't tell anybody why. So those type of events built up and built up. And finally, last year, I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being afraid that I'm gonna lose my job. I'm gonna lose the respect of my employees. I'm gonna lose my friends. I'm gonna lose maybe my safety. The cost is too much. Whatever I will lose, it will be worth it to be myself publicly and wholly with all of the people that I love. And I was rewarded with an overwhelming surge of love and support from everyone. And that is the power of visibility. So all of these things have been wonderful blessings in my life. But visibility is not just one side of a coin. Visibility brings about some unfortunate consequences as well. Visibility in our community this year has resulted in an uptick in violence. We've had more trans people killed this year than any year on record. That's both in the US, where we've had over 20 deaths, and abroad, where it's been over 200. Right here in Tampa, Florida, we had a trans woman named India Clark, who was a woman of color, who was brutally killed. And that shook the safety of my local community. But it did something good too. We reached out to India's family, and though the visibility is growing, they didn't know what transgender meant. They just knew they loved their little girl, however that worked out. So they didn't know pronouns, and they didn't know, you know, the acceptable vernacular. And instead of coming with a political agenda, we came with love to a community that was hurting, to a family that was hurting. And we were able to meet each other where we were and help heal each other. So out of that violence, I think both of our communities learned a little bit more of how to support each other and how to take care of each other. Now, it also increased the visibility of some accountability that needs to be demanded. The situation was handled poorly by officials both in the media and in the police. And the transgender community is full of vibrant, intelligent people that have a political agenda, and we want the same rights as everybody else. And so that shone a spotlight on a problem, and we're working on it. Another unintended consequence has been legislation. We've seen more transgender-focused pieces of legislation this year than any year before. Right here in Florida, a group of transgender individuals traveled to Tallahassee to testify in front of the Florida House of Representatives to oppose a bill that would have made it illegal. It would have caused jailing and fines to transgender people just for going to the bathroom if it was not what was listed on their birth certificate. So that would place me right in the ladies' room, which is obviously a good look. So Fortunately, our legislators were not wise and didn't understand that, so that was a pretty effective strategy to bring that to their attention. But unfortunately, this is not a unique piece of legislation, and it's popped up all over the country and has had some traction in other states. So that visibility has drawn kind of the eye of Sauron to our community. But again, we have a vibrant, intelligent group of people who are working on it. And most importantly, we have an excellent group of allies. So it's been said that only 1 in 10 people say that they know someone who is transgender. Obviously, 14 years of living stealth, I'm sure that a lot of people didn't know that they knew me. So that's why visibility is important, but it is also crucial that our allies are just as visible. When I came out for the second time last year, more people reached out to my friends to ask questions than they did to reach out to me. So it is incredibly important that our allies are visible as allies. The transgender community is not large. We are less than 1% on most surveys. So if we are going to get anywhere and protect our community and advance our rights, we need the help of our allies. And we need our allies to be as visible as we are. Because when we are visible, we are vulnerable. But when we are visible together, we are powerful.